Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Adversity University. We are very excited to have our guest today. She is from Delafield, Wisconsin. She has the most wins, saves, and minutes played in Badger women's history, won a national championship in 2011, is a 5-time world champion, and also won a gold medal in the 2018 Olympics. On top of that, she was the first female ever drafted in the USHL and the first goalie to be named captain of the Badger women's hockey team. We would list all of her accolades, but it would take at least 20 minutes. Welcome, Alex Cavallini.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks
That was
for
an
coming
introduction.
on. Seriously, I looked up all of the accolades you had after you had sent a few, and it was absurd. Quite accomplished, to say the least. So, Alex, what have you been doing to stay busy during quarantine?
My main task of the day is literally to work out, so it's been pretty nice. We have a great setup here. My father-in-law, so I'm staying at my in-laws right now. We left New York City 8 weeks ago, thinking we'd be here for a week, and here we are, still here, not knowing we're going to go back, but we're pretty lucky just because my father-in-law got their weight room, their little weight set out of storage, so we have like a squat rack and all that, so it's been good, and otherwise a lot of board games and puzzles and things like that.
Nice. Yeah, it's just fun in any way to stay busy. Me and Sean are fortunate enough that we're living together right now. So, we do anything we can to stay busy. We actually, as I mentioned you earlier, Alex, we got jobs at Home Depot and same, working out in the morning. So we've actually been quite busier than I would have ever imagined, especially during a time like this.
Yeah, good for you guys.
So even though there isn't an NHL team, there's no doubt that Wisconsin is a huge hockey state. What was it like growing up in Wisconsin, and did you always dream of playing for the hometown Badgers?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Growing up, I feel like women's hockey didn't come in to the Badgers until like 2001 or 2001. So at that point, I was 9 years old, and so I didn't really know much about women's hockey at that point. They were playing out of the Caps Arena in Madison. And so that was before they moved over to the Kohl Center. But so I didn't really know much about that growing up. I just remember hearing like there was a women's team and that'd be really cool. I feel like the idea kind of came about more so when I was in 8th grade, 8th, 9th grade. I took my first visit when I was in 9th grade. And so from that point forward, it was my dream to want to play there. I definitely kept my options open and looked at other places, but it was always like Wisconsin here, every other school here. And so I was really happy when I was finally able to commit. Really dragged the coaches along, so I felt a little bad about that, but I just wanted to make sure everything was good and in order, and I'm really happy with my decision.
Yeah, awesome. And then obviously in a situation where you're committing, you want to make sure that you're going to a place that you feel at home. So that's good that you did take your time, and I'm sure the coaches understood, and obviously look at what you did there. So good for them for hanging on.
Yeah, it was cool. It was, it was the best decision. When I was looking, I wasn't necessarily looking to, be close to home. I wasn't afraid to leave, but in the end, I was so happy that I chose that school and, had family close and had the best coaching staff there is, and you're treated like absolute pros there.
Yeah. No kidding.
Both of my parents are from Wisconsin too, so whenever we visit, it's Bucky Badger everything. Even like the ice cream brands are Bucky Badger. So I'm sure there's a little bit of subliminal messaging going on there too.
Yep.
Yeah, Madison's a great college town. So you had very high aspirations in a typically male-dominant sport. What challenges did you have to face, and was there ever criticism that came along with that?
Yeah, I didn't really realize it at a young age. None of my friends, like my girlfriends at school, were playing hockey. I had one actually, but other than that, it was, always boys and didn't really think much of it. And I knew that there was an Olympic team that I could someday play on. And that was kind of my goal early on when the women won in '98 for the gold medal. But other than that, I just didn't really know much about women's hockey. And so I just kept chugging along in the boys world until I got a little bit older. And it was then that I started having coaches and parents from other teams coming up to me and being like, you need to be playing girls hockey. You're never going to get seen. You're too good. Like, you need to be seen by these college coaches. And, you know, for me at the time, I had skated a little bit with the girls and I was playing AAA boys hockey. So it was such a dramatic difference. You know, women's hockey wasn't where it is today, especially in the youth levels. And, you know, I kept going along with it and kept trying out, kept making the teams. And for me, there was no reason to go and play on the girls' side until my first time was when I was in college. But yeah, that was the wild thing, was that parents would be telling me that I need to change teams, and coaches I'd never even met were being like, you need to get out of the boys, you need to play girls hockey. And the first person to actually recruit me was, or who kind of put me on the board with Wisconsin was, I think it was Mark Osiki from the men's side. I think that was him. It was one of the men's coaches, and he let Mark Johnson know about me. So, you know, I was still getting seen. I made sure coaches, you know, from women's hockey knew that I was playing where and when. And so I try to make it as easy on them as possible to kind of recruit me.
Yeah, I think something that is underestimated is that the hockey world is so small. People always talk. It doesn't matter where you're from. There's players from Alaska getting recruited. There's players from all corners of the country and even the world. So as long as you excel in what you do, you definitely make a name for yourself. And it's awesome to see how far you went.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's what's crazy too now is just like, I think there's so many more teams and there's so many more people who are dedicating their time to recruiting and scouting. And, you know, I think that if there were any girls, that they would be found in the men's realm, and they shouldn't be afraid of that.
So you briefly went over it, but you played your entire life on boys hockey teams. And you mentioned that it wasn't until your freshman year of college that you played on the all-girls team. How did you handle not having other girls to relate to growing up and going through a confusing stage of life, honestly? And do you think playing with boys helped you or hurt you in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely different. You know, I was changing in the guys' locker room, even into high school, and, you know, they would put their undergear on. I'd already be changing in my undergear like for games, and then I'd come in the locker room. I was really fortunate to have guys on the team who treated me like their sister. That was kind of, you know, the thing that the coaches always harped on, was that treat this like your sister. And they were all my brothers. And, you know, I got along with all of them really well. And definitely they made me competitive and made me have to prove myself every year. It was the same thing every year. I had to come back on the team, had to prove that I belonged there. And, you know, I deserved to be there, and I wasn't just taking some guy's spot because I was a girl that they wanted to kind of work with. It was because I had the ability to play there. And, you know, I was really lucky to have such great teammates along the way. And, yeah, I mean, it was just different. I played part-time girls for 2 seasons, and then I was on the U18 team. And so I got interactions there. And then I also played with Brianna Decker for 1 season with Wisconsin AAA. So she's my current teammate. And so it's been fun knowing her for as long as we have. And same thing with Kendall Coyne. She would come practice with our team at the Chicago Mission. So it's always nice to kind of have someone who you could relate to and understand, or they understood what you're going through. And yeah, it was a totally different thing once you got into the girls' locker room at Wisconsin. It was, you know, so fun to be around other women, and, you know, you just had so much fun in there. And so, you know, at first it was kind of like, I've been missing this for a while, but I definitely look back and be like, no, you know, the boys hockey helped get me to where I am today, and I have no regrets with playing with them. And yeah, I learned a ton from it, and still it makes me appreciate just growing up with them. And you know, even today I don't get afraid to go on the ice with guys, and still have guys shoot on me. And, you know, Garrett and I skated for a bit when I was out of college, so, you know, I still stay around it.
I think it's awesome that it just shows that, and that's the biggest part of us doing this podcast, right, is that no one's path is the same. And I think it's awesome that you took a completely different path than, you know, the average female would in the sport of hockey. and it worked out for you. So I guess for, other girls out there, and I think you can attest to this, it doesn't matter what path you're on, as long as you're playing at the highest possible level you can, play and compete at. So that's awesome that you've taken a totally different path and clearly made, a great name for yourself in the sport of hockey. As a goalie, you're in your own space on the ice. I assume you had your own locker room. As a girl, you mentioned that you did share a locker room a little bit with the guys. But do you think that there was a difference between the bonding with the women and the bonding with the guys? And how did you stay included on the team mentally and not feel left out when you were playing on the men's teams?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was a tomboy growing up. Everyone would know that. So I feel like I fit in really well with the guys and just became friends with them. I mean, I think they saw me for who I was and didn't really think about gender. And I think that, like I said before, that helped with the coaches too. I mean, my father-in-law was my coach, and he's the one who brought me into AAA hockey when I was in 5th grade. And he saw me as a hockey player, not as a female hockey player. And, I think just making sure that I had to have tough skin. I'm not going to lie. I get picked on. Other guys got picked on, but that was a thing. Like, you see it, and boys, they're goofy and, mischievous and whatever. And, I think even my now husband, we were teammates, and he was a little shit. Like, him and we would fight like brother and sister, and, you would see the kind of look behind his eyes, like, oh, he's up to something now. And like, I think it was just kind of hanging in there with them. And, I'm not saying that I was getting behind any of those things that they were doing, but, just kind of having that tough skin, making sure that, when they would pick on you or say things, we wouldn't take offense to it. I mean, I grew up with 2 brothers. So it was the same thing with them. And I think that helped me a lot. But, growing up and maturing with them, seeing them mature, and, it was fun. Like, it was, I just was really lucky. I was driving down to Chicago with 2 guys, and that was in 8th grade and 9th grade. And that's a huge time for, maturity and going through puberty and different things like that. And for me, it was, always just trying to remember the end goal. Like, I'm here because I want to play at the next level. This is what's going to help me. I can handle the words. I know that they're here for me. They're just messing around, like things like that. So yeah, I just never let it really, I tried to not let it get to me when things would get said. But other than that, like I said, I was really lucky with my experiences.
I think another point that I've been thinking about is that you may have not even known it because you were so young, but you were pushing outside of your comfort zone this whole time and pushing yourself to do things that were challenging. And that's what ultimately led to your success, because that's where the growth comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about even when I would go to practice, especially when I got older, I knew how important practice was. I knew how important the games were. And I remember just driving to the rink, and I'd start to get like a pit in my stomach. And like, not really realizing that until later on, that I'm like, I was nervous. And like, that was what was getting me prepared for these practices, that I knew that I had to perform well, and I couldn't afford to take a day off and things like that. And so I think it definitely challenged me and pushed me out of my comfort zone, like you said. And, I really have no regrets on any of it.
What a young age to, have to be able to go to the rink that prepared every single day. I know that I didn't really start doing that, and not because I didn't want to, but because it's so hard to do, especially mentally. But I didn't really do that till, I'd say, college, or at least learn how to do that. And as you mentioned, going through tough times and battling through it, before your freshman and sophomore seasons, you needed major hip surgery. What was your mindset going into those surgeries and during the recovery process?
It's kind of crazy, the first one. I got injured at my senior year, and it was to the point where I'm like, I couldn't sit. Like, I know you've had hip surgery too, and like, I couldn't sit in class. I couldn't sit in the car. I was just like miserable all the time, and trying to get up and out of my butterfly hurt, and didn't really know what was going on. I was going to physical therapy. No one really knew. Finally, I went to a doctor, and I went to a doctor in Milwaukee, and this is before hip surgery was even common, like the labral repair and things like that. And went to this guy in Milwaukee, and does my scans, and he's like, all right, so you need a labral repair. Like, it's a big major hip surgery. you're never going to be able to play at the elite level that you're playing again. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm going to Wisconsin next year. And like, I want to play in the Olympic team. That's my dream. And he's like, yeah, no, like this, you're not going to be able to really recover from this. It's going to be really tough, blah, blah, blah. I left there like bawling. Like I was in hysteria. Like, I'm not getting this done. I'll play through the pain. Like it's not worth it. And so my mom, who's always been my biggest advocate, she was reaching out to people all over the country, all these different doctors, and ended up finding Dr. Philippon out in Vail. And they provided the comfort being like, you're going to come out of this stronger than ever. You're going to feel better. You're going to be so happy you got this done. And so with that, felt really comfortable going out to Vail, and knew it was going to be a long road. Don't think I knew it was going to be hard as it was. You know, the whole process of learning to skate again and just even firing muscles and things like that. So in the end, I'm happy I did it, but it definitely has been like a big battle. I'm still consistently working on it. And I think as I got older, I got even more mature with everything and realized that, you know, I can't just show up to the rink and be ready to go. I have to do a whole warm up. And I think we all kind of realize that as our bodies get, you know, thrown through things and, you know, we get older, but you know, I think definitely worked out, but it was a long road and it kind of kept me out of the national team thing for a little bit, but it's all right. Like got better from it and happy I got it done when I did.
I hope you sent the doctor that told you you'd never be able to play competitively again a picture of you with the national championship less than a year later.
I know. I couldn't believe it. And yeah, I don't even remember his name, but I just remember leaving there just an absolute mess. So happy I didn't go there.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to have my hip surgeries done when, you know, it was a little bit more progressive in technology, and now it's not really an invasive surgery. You know, it's just kind of two little microscopes that go in and get the job done. So very fortunate to have gone through that. But yeah, the recovery process for me, I think, was around 6 months, and same thing, hard to go through. Just, you know, like you said, refiring muscles and really learning how to become a goalie again. You have the, you know, the quick twitch, but I mean, dropping down to the butterfly for the first time was one of the scariest things I think I've ever had to go through.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I think I stood there for 10 minutes looking down at the ice and be like, okay, I'm going to drop into a butterfly. I'm going to be okay. Like I did it in Vail. I went back and I was skating in Vail. Like I had a checkup. And so like, all right, we're taking you to the rink across the parking lot. Let's go. Like you're going to learn how to do this again. And I was absolutely terrified. And as soon as I did it and like dropped into a butterfly and didn't feel anything, I'm like, okay, it's all going to be okay. We're going to be good. But yeah, that was a terrifying moment.
Wow. So you had an amazing career as a 4-year starter at Wisconsin. A lot of people would have thought that you would have made the Olympic roster as a result. However, in 2014, when the women's roster for the Sochi Olympics was announced, your name wasn't on it. How did you take this news, and how did it change you as an athlete?
It's pretty devastating, not going to lie. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. I mean, I had been on the team for the whole year prior. So I wasn't a part of the national team for my freshman part of sophomore year because I had been battling those hip injuries and didn't go to camp, so I couldn't try out for the team. And so, you know, finally I had my opportunity to try out again, made the team, was on the team for the full year and went into tryouts feeling great. Felt really prepared, knew that if I, you know, pretty much left it into me controlling the controllables, right? Like I went into it being like, this is my opportunity. I'm going to take it. I'm going to run with it. I'm not going to give the coaches any reason to cut me. And so at the end of the camp, I felt great. And then they read off the roster in alphabetical order. And as soon as I heard 2 of the goalies' names, I'm like, yeah, I didn't make the team. They only brought 4 goalies to tryouts and they took 3 goalies. And so that was pretty heartbreaking. Went back to Wisconsin, regrouped a bit, you know, was lucky enough to have my senior season to look forward to. And I had great teammates who picked me up and my support system and stuff who were incredible. And, you know, I took a different perspective. I think that's when I really got like a different perspective in mind. You know, up until that point, I was like, Olympics, hockey, this is my life. This is what I'm going to do. And for the first time, I'm like, hockey may not be in my cards. Like might be it, like after my senior year. So I'm going to have fun. So I took it. We had an absolute amazing team, had a blast. It was the first time that I wasn't worrying about national team camps and things like that. And they called me up a few weeks before the Olympics and they're like, hey, can you be an alternate? And things like that. But yeah, it was hard. And then after my senior season, I had to make the decision like, all right, am I going to, give up and get a job, or am I going to continue to play hockey? And took a long time to think about that, decided I wanted to keep playing. And, obviously really happy that I did continue to do it.
As an Olympic athlete, 4 years between events is so long. How are you able to keep that big picture in mind, especially at a young age, still a college student? How are you able to say, this dream is worth pushing, giving everything I have for another 4 years just to get another shot at it?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. That year I was a fifth year in college. And so I was just taking a few classes and was an intern with the marketing department at Wisconsin. I was skating with the Caps USHL team. So I got to do that, and that was great, just being able to go out for practices and stuff like that. And it was hard, like that year, especially just because up until that point, you have everything planned out. When your practices are, like even through youth hockey, right? Like, you have school, you have practice, you have games, like this is where you're going to be. And that was the first year where I'm like, wow, I have to plan my workout times. I have to plan my treatments. I have to, figure out where I'm skating. And so that year I got on with a goalie coach, Larry Clemens, who Garrett and I work with. And it was life-changing. I mean, I skated with Jessie Vetter. She was still playing at the time, and she was an incredible mentor for me. And she showed me that balance and how important it is just to have fun, be on the ice, be competitive and things like that, but also like know that there's more than hockey in your life. And so I think that was a huge change of a mindset for me, where I'm like, I can't just go, boom, boom, boom in the weight room all the time. Like I have to like listen to my body. I have to have balance. I need to have fun. And so that was a great change for me. And I think that just kind of having that mindset made it a lot easier to kind of be like, okay, I'm in this for the next 3 years. And so, you kind of take it a season at a time. Went through that first season. It was a great season. Next season, became, earned the starting spot. And so that just gets a little easier as you get a little bit closer, and the intensity definitely goes up for sure though.
We'll do a little shout out to Larry for any of the goalies out in Wisconsin. Definitely want to skate with him, as Rigsby and I can attest to. Very knowledgeable in the game, and also just a great guy. You mentioned you skated with the Caps. Obviously, I was there, and it was awesome having you around and just being so competitive with the guys. And I didn't know this until I talked to you earlier, but you were drafted by the Chicago Steel in the USHL. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, no, definitely shout out to Larry. He's definitely changed my life since college. So USHL, so that's when I was playing boys. And so I was picking up my brother from lacrosse, and all of a sudden, like, I started getting all these texts and calls from my teammates. I was like, what are they up to? And they're like, congratulations. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, you just got drafted. And I was like, for what? And they're like, the USHL, they just drafted you. I'm like, oh my gosh. So talked to the coaches. Right after that, they called me up. They're like, congratulations, you deserve it. We've seen you play. And later on, heard the story from their goalie coach saying that I was playing the game at their rink in Bensonville. And I was at the other end, and the coach was like talking to the goalie coach and was like, hey, that guy's really good. Like, who is that? Blah, blah, blah. And like, my name's Alex too. So like, it can go both ways. And so, like, keep complimenting me. And then I come to the other end, and you see like my big ponytail in the back, and was like, please, the guy goes, please tell me that's a guy with long hair. And so they still continue to draft me. So like, I mean, kudos to them for looking past gender and, drafting me. And it was an awesome experience. I'll never forget going there, showing up with my hockey bag, and guys kind of just looking at me like, who's this person? Like, are you lost? Like, what are you doing? People ask me like, hey, what are you here for? I'm like, you're to try out for the Chicago Steel. And so they always kind of be like, what are you talking about? And so it started off with like, the goalie thing where they cut it down from like 40 some to 20 some, and it was like 46 goalies down to, 24 goalies or something like that. And then ended up making it to the final game with 3 goalies left and didn't make it. But, overall it was just a really cool experience. I was really proud of how I did. And I was able to compete out there. So it was fun. And my goalie partner, this is actually funny, my goalie partner at the time was also trying out, and we were playing in a game against each other. And the ref comes up to me like mid-game, like I just made a save. He's like, hey, that goalie down there wants to fight you. And I was like, haha, okay, like, okay, Baldy, like, whatever. And keeps coming up like, he really wants to drop the gloves. I'm like, I'm not dropping the gloves with him. Like, I know him. And Baldy comes up to me after and was like, dude, why did you keep telling the ref that you wanted to fight me? And I was like, are you serious? The ref was going up to both of us being like, hey, he wants to fight. Hey, she wants to fight. I'm like, you're kidding? Like, could you imagine if we just went to center ice and just dropped the gloves? Like,
could have been the first goalie drafted and the first female goalie fight, yeah. Probably. Not sure about that, but I don't think there's been one.
But yeah, no, it was cool. It was fun. It was a cool experience for sure. Especially because all my teammates were going through that at the time, and it was just cool to be able to experience that with them.
Yeah, really cool. You talk about the fighting. It's funny because, Luke, but when I played in Madison, there was 2 separate occasions where he literally was yelling at me to skate down the ice and fight. Actually, Ben Blacker, who now plays for Western Michigan, he played for Cedar Rapids at the time, and Ben's a little bit of a smaller guy, and I don't think he wanted anything to do with it, but Luke would just be going nuts yelling at me to skate down the ice and fight that kid. And I'm like, Luke, I already don't play a lot, this year, and I'm going to have to sit out for like 5 games if I do this.
Yeah.
I didn't want any part of it, but I stood on the, center ice and waited for him. So thankfully he didn't want any part of it, because I would have been in the stands for a while.
At least you attempted it.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I need to do it before my career is over, though. Hopefully I don't get my ass kicked. So going back to the Olympics, you were eventually able to crack the Olympic roster, and you gained the starting role for the entire year of 2017. The next year when the 2018 Olympics happened, you didn't play a single game. What was it like losing the starting job? And once again, how did you use this as motivation to battle back in the starting role you currently sit in?
It was hard. Oh, man. Like, I had come in and I had competed against 3 2-time Olympians, and I had been in the mix with them for so long at that point. And, one retired, and then, I just had I finally had broken into it, and I had made my, finally made the starting position. And, we had this coach, Ken Klee. You didn't play with his son at Caps, did you?
Garrett Klee?
Yeah.
I played with him for a little bit, I believe, in Waterloo.
Okay. So, yeah, Ken Klee was our coach after the 2014 Olympics, and he was incredible. I mean, he was a total players coach. Like, we all loved him. And so, he had gained confidence in me, and, we had a great relationship. And in December of 2016, we got a call saying that he was no longer going to be our coach, and our goalie coach was now going to be our head coach. And so that big adjustment really kind of threw a wrench in my whole progression. I ended up getting injured before the 2017 World Championships. We had a camp in February, and it was in March or something, and he started off with breakaways, and I tore my hip capsule. So that was kind of like a big time as to when I was like, okay, I really need to get my whole hip thing under control, and created the whole warm-up routine and things like that. And so it was like a 6 to 8 week recovery, and Worlds were at 4 weeks, and the Olympic trials were at 8 weeks. So I wasn't in my best spot, and I knew that. and that was pretty unfortunate. And then going to the Olympic year, a goalie who had made the team for the first time was Maddie Rooney, and she had made the team for Worlds, and all of a sudden she was a starting goalie. So it was hard. Like, I mean, it was nothing, you know, I wouldn't say it was my ability at all during the Olympic year. And I think that's what was so hard, was that I still was battling. I was still competing. I was still doing really well. And the coach just didn't ride me. And I think that's such a great lesson for so many goalies, is to just, you know, understand at times where it's like, okay, you're doing all the work and the cards just aren't in it for you. And to accept that role. And so, you know, the Olympics, I definitely accepted the role. It was as hard as it was. The thing that was really hard was that there was no communication as to who was playing what. So I never would have imagined that I wouldn't play a single minute at the Olympics. And I think that was a really hard pill to swallow. And so obviously we came out and we won, and that's like the best thing ever. And, you know, you want to be so supportive for your goalie partners. And it was a dream come true to still win an Olympics and stuff. But definitely, you know, had the mindset when I came back for this, you know, the season after, is I want to be back and I want to be the starting goalie. And so I earned that starting position back. We had a new coach and earned that starting position back. And, you know, I've kind of had that for the last couple seasons. And just to go off that too, you know, with my goalie partners, Nicole Hensley and Maddie Rooney, I mean, we went through so much. Like, the adversity that we all faced during that Olympic year is something that, you know, not many people can really say they've ever been through or can understand. And so the three of us definitely have a bond that way. And, you know, obviously Maddie played incredible and got us the gold medal. And, yeah, I think that's just a thing for goalies, is, you know, only one person starts, and that's the tough position. That's a tough part of position. I mean, you know, you're not always going to play every game, but it's taking that opportunity when you do get it and making sure that, you know, you play your best game possible and that you're prepared to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that saying is success is when preparation meets opportunity. So you did everything you could to prepare, and when you do get that opportunity again, hopefully you can run with it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. And Sean can attest to this, something similar. When I moved here and I played on the U18 team when I was living with Sean at the time, my goalie partner, Jacob Weatherly, was very good, played, you know, almost every game. I think I played 10 games that entire year. You talk about mindset. I learned to just, as you said, just be the best teammate you possibly can be, and be so supportive of your teammates and your friends. And to be honest, that year I didn't want to be known as the backup goalie that was pouting on the end of the bench. I wanted to be, you know, the best teammate and their motivator, and someone that they can lean on, and someone that just supported them. And it was funny because by the end of the year, one of my nicknames, and even the coaches called me this, was Coach G. I would stand on the back of the bench and, you know, let a guy know if he had a good shift, or if I saw something I felt I could chime in on, I would try to help them out. So I think no matter what situation you're put in, it's really all about mindset. And as you mentioned earlier, controlling the controllables, which I think is your attitude and your effort. So.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I that's what I say too, like, especially at the Olympics. Oh, I was an absolute hype man. Like,
Yeah.
I would just like, I'd wake up in the morning and be like, I am going to be the best teammate I could possibly be today. I was like, I can't wait to be a great teammate. Like, I'm going to go there, like, you know, still work my butt off in practice, and, you know, just try to have fun with the players, and, you know, get the energy going and things like that. And, you know, I just tried to have that mindset as best I could and be as supportive of a goalie partner as I could. Like, you know, just trying to hype Maddie up as much as I could, and things like that. I mean, in the end, you're there to win. You know, that's it. Like, and I was just on a gold medal webinar with Jim Craig and Steve Janicek, and, you know, Steve was just talking about how, you know, same thing for him. Like, he was just trying to, you know, he was sharpening skates and things like that. He was just trying to do whatever he could to, you know, help everyone. And Jim will say first thing he said was Janny was the best goalie partner I could possibly have. And so I'm like, that's just a great lesson for all goalies out there, is to, you know, don't sit there and pout and, you know, feel sorry for yourself. There's only one person who can start. Like, players don't really understand that. And, you know, they'll never really kind of understand what you go through if you're sitting in the stands or whatever by yourself. And, but you're still trying to be the best teammate you can be.
Yeah. And going off that, I would say don't accept, being the second person. Still practice, and even if you are the starter, practice and play as if you are the backup and you're still trying to earn that starting role. But for me, once I accepted that, that mentality of I'm not going to worry about if I'm playing, and if I do play great, I'm going to do my best and take advantage of the opportunity. But if I'm not, I'm just going to be the best human and teammate I possibly can. And once I mentally accepted that, I had so much fun with the game.
Yeah, it makes it so much better. I mean, how hard is it when you're sitting there and be like, oh, like I feel so bad for myself. Like you're just sitting there in your own, and it's like it makes it miserable. Like that's not fun at all. Like it's gonna make it so hard to go to the rink, and that's obviously why you're continuing to play at such a high level and gotten to where you are too, because the mindset. It's all about it.
Yeah.
From a player standpoint, when a goalie who isn't really playing or players who aren't playing as much are still bringing positive energy and positive emotion to the team, it just helps so much because the game's all mental and the team has to be one full unit. You guys can't be divided. So it really helps. I played on that team with Coach G and we were fired up to see him, and he really did help us out a lot that year. Even he's not in there saving pucks, but he's still helping the team win games. So sounds like you guys did a great job of helping your teams out in that aspect.
That's awesome. Making an impact.
So not many people outside of hockey are familiar with this cause, unfortunately, but you are a member of the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. How are you trying to grow the game for the next generation of women, and what are you sacrificing for this cause?
I think that's a key word, sacrifice. Last year, so 2 seasons ago, so the first year off out of the Olympics, that was when I was like, I need to be the starting goalie. Like, I need to work towards it. How am I going to get there? And I decided to go play for the Canadian Women's Hockey League, the CWHL. And so I played for a team in Calgary. And so I was flying in and out of Madison just because I'm like, okay, I'm getting married next summer. I can't just uproot and leave. My husband's my fiance's in grad school. And, I was getting paid $2,000 Canadian. Like you can't just move. Like you can't just uproot your life for that kind of money. Like when I had so much else, other things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to work with Larry. And then I'll fly in and out for games and meet the team in different places and whatever. And it was an awesome experience. Like I loved it. Our team won the Clarkson Cup, which was the final at the end of the year. And it was just a really great season. And then we had our training camp and we were in Long Island, New York. We were there like 2 weeks after the season had ended. And we were about to fly out to Finland for the World Championships that year. Finland was hosting the World Championships. And so we had a CWHL call and we're like, oh, like maybe they're expanding, like they're going to add a team or whatever. And so we're on this call and they're like, all right, so we have looked at the numbers. We have decided we're going to fold. And we're all like, what? Like, what do you mean you're going to fold? Canada, who all played on the CW, was already in Finland. Like they just touched down there and then they just dropped this bomb on us. And so, obviously for us, we're like, okay, we can't like get too worked up over this. We're here for the World Championships. This is what we need to do. But immediately, we had most of our players playing in the NWHL and they're like, we can't keep going on like this. Like this is clearly, it's not, neither of these leagues are sustainable. And so spoke with the Canadians and quickly formed the PWHPA. And so that consists of about 200 female hockey players that, we all believe in the same goal of wanting to create a sustainable hockey league where it's, you get paid. We're not asking for millions of dollars. It's literally just like a livable wage. So people don't have to work and go to practice. And so want like a practice schedule, want support staff, want a competitive schedule. And so that's something that we strongly believe in. And so we took the stance that we weren't going to play in any league until a sustainable league came about. And so last year was the first season of that. And we had, we created this Dream Gap tour where we were going to different cities and would play different games and play like mini tournaments every weekend and, or not every weekend, but when we would. And so it was hard. I mean, you would be showing up to games and you would be playing with new players for the first time and then have to go out there and compete. So it was definitely a sacrifice for us, but we all believe, in the bigger picture that we want to be able to create a league for the next generation. So when girls do come out of college, that they have something to look forward to, and they have a league where they're like, okay, we can get paid. And so it's just similar to, you know, the WNBA and the women's soccer league. And so we'll see. We're going to keep, you know, we had a lot of momentum gained from this past season, and obviously the world's kind of up in a halt right now. We're looking forward to kind of doing that same thing this upcoming year.
You talk about momentum. You played at the NHL All-Star game. They had a little girls segment, and also I'm not sure if you played in this, but I know that they had you know, a girls game in Anaheim, California, actually. And from what I saw, they had a great showing. So did you play in that game?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
How awesome was that to see and have such support, especially, you know, not only in the state of California, but it was broadcasted on the NHL Network, and, you know, for you guys to get kind of the attention that you have been seeking.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, so we started off with the All-Star game, and that was so cool. I mean, we found out about it. I found out about it on like Christmas Eve, and they didn't announce it until like 3 weeks later. I think they announced it like a week and a half before the All-Star game. And from that point forward, I mean, we got great, you know, attention, and everyone was positive about it. And, you know, the NHL treated us so well when we were there. And so we played the first ever women's 3-on-3 game, and unfortunately Canada came out on top on that one. They won 2-1, but it was so cool. I mean, after, I remember, like, you know, obviously I was so mad that we lost, and my husband was there, my parents, and I was like, oh my God, how was it? Like, what do you think? Like, was it a good showing? And they're like, are you serious? And I was like, what? Like, I have no idea. Like, how did the fans react? They're like, you guys had a standing ovation at the end. I was like, what? Like, I didn't even process that. Like, it was one of those things where you're like going out there like, okay, we're going to compete, like, ignore everything. And they're like, no, like, that was the most focused like anyone was the entire time, because we'd be in the locker room, like, watching on TV and, like, you know, warming up, whatever, and for everything else. And like, no, like, that was a great showing for women's hockey. And so we were super pumped. The NHL was pumped. Susan Coig, she's a huge supporter of us within the NHL. And so she kind of set the whole thing up, and it was awesome. And so then we got home from that, and a day later we were heading to camp for our rivalry series against Canada. And so that was a 3-game series. So we had training camp in Anaheim, and then we flew up to Vancouver to go to Victoria Island, over back to Vancouver for a second game, and then third game was in Anaheim. So I had to start for the Anaheim game, and that was incredible. I mean, we had the record for most fans in a U.S. women's hockey game, and that was over 13,000. And so, yeah, it was really cool. I mean, kudos to Anaheim for picking up our game and running with it. And I think it just shows like the product that we have. And, you know, it was a great game. It was exciting. We won in overtime, and yeah, it was really cool. It was a cool game to be a part of.
If you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think just, I would say have fun, dream big and have fun. I think that's like such a big thing. And I think as you get older too, you have to kind of remind yourself of why you're playing, and that you want to find the joy in things. You know, when it becomes not fun anymore, that's when it kind of gets, you know, to be a really big grind, and you just want to make sure that you're having fun with it at all times.
Yeah, you have to love what you do. You can't make going to the rink a chore. And if you lose the joy in the game, I think it's important to just focus on what got you there in the first place. And at the end of the day, we were all just kids who loved to play our sport. And it's amazing that we've been able to take it this far. So it's awesome that you have found that passion. And we thank you so much for coming on the show. It was awesome to hear about your story. You have so many incredible moments, and you were always able to overcome the adversity. And that's what we want to show people, is that even though you're so successful and have all these huge moments that were really tough times in your life, that you were able to overcome, and that's what brought you the success.
Thank you. It was fun being on the show. Great job. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Can't thank you enough.
Hold me close. close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading